Have you ever really thought about the true purpose of the police? Are they meant to be this immovable force against crime, or are they supposed to be a dedicated guardian of the community? Well, that's exactly the tug-of-war we're digging into today.
So, what's the answer? Are they a force or a guardian? That is the central question we are going to unpack in this explainer.
All right, here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we'll get into this fundamental tension. Then, we'll look at the two opposing models, force versus guardian. From there, we'll jump into a real-world case study with anti-crime units, explore the tricky balancing act they face, and we'll wrap it all up with the big questions this raises for every single one of us.
Okay, let's dive right into our first section. We're getting right to the heart of the matter, understanding this core conflict that really shapes so much of modern policing.
So at the very core of this whole issue is what's called the dichotomy of policing. And what does that actually mean? Well, think of it like a constant tug-of-war between two totally different ways of doing things. You've got the iron fist of aggressive crime suppression on one side and the open hand of community-focused engagement on the other. Two philosophies pulling in opposite directions.
And this isn't just about picking the right strategy for the right situation. No, it goes so much deeper than that. This is really about defining the very identity, the soul of a police department. What is their fundamental purpose? That's the question we have to answer.
So let's build on that. Let's move to our next section. We're going to break down these two opposing models in a lot more detail.
And this is where you can really see the stark contrast. On one side, you've got the force model. It's aggressive, sometimes even militarized. And look, it can get results fast, but it often comes at a huge cost. And that cost is community trust. On the other side, you have the guardian model. This one is all about building those relationships, which can lead to much more sustainable, long-term safety. But it might not feel as decisive in the heat of the moment.
And the consequences of getting this balance wrong, they are absolutely devastating. We're not just talking about some bad headlines or a little PR problem here, no way. We're talking about communities being shattered, trust being broken, and a cycle of conflict that is just so hard to fix. So, this all might sound a bit abstract. How does it actually play out in the real world? Well, let's look at a perfect case study, the use of specialized anti-crime units.
Okay, let's talk about these anti-crime units. In a lot of ways, they're the embodiment of this entire debate. These are the specialized teams sent into the most dangerous areas to take on the most violent crime and get guns off the streets. And while they can be incredibly effective at that mission, they also walk a real razor's edge, a very fine line between protecting a community and terrorizing it.
And this is where it gets really complicated, right? I mean, how do you even measure the success of a unit whose job is literally to be aggressive? Is it just about the number of arrests they make? And maybe more importantly, how do you hold them accountable when they often operate in the shadows, kind of away from the usual oversight?
This brings us right to the balancing act. And honestly, this is maybe the toughest challenge that police departments face day in and day out.
This diagram really drives the point home. You've got crime suppression, community relationships, and accountability. And you absolutely cannot have one without the others. It's like an ecosystem, right? You can't have lasting crime suppression without strong community relationships. And you can't build those relationships without real accountability. If one part breaks down, the whole thing can just come crashing down with it.
This right here is the question that should keep police chiefs and city leaders up at night. What is the point of getting crime stats down if you are also destroying the very fabric of the community you're sworn to protect? I mean, is a safe community one where people live in fear of the police? I don't think a single person would say yes to that.
So let's bring it all together and talk about the big questions this leaves us with, because this isn't just a topic for law enforcement. It affects everyone.
So what can you do with all of this? Here's a simple framework. First, really get the difference between the force and guardian models. Second, start paying attention to how this tension plays out in your own community's news. And finally, don't be afraid to ask the tough questions about it. That's the only way we all make progress.
And I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from the source material. We can't just be passive observers in this debate. We have to be active participants. We have to be willing to challenge our own assumptions, to ask those hard questions, and to demand better from our leaders. That is the only way we're going to create a more just and safe society for everyone.
So what role do we truly want law enforcement to play in our society? That's the question I'll leave you with. Thanks for tuning in.